What's up? Hope everyone's having a good day and is ready for another video in the series we like to call Underrated Throwers. Today we got Aleksandr Baryshnikov from the USSR, aka the former Soviet Union. And I believe he is very underrated because I don't think a lot of people realize how important he is to the trajectory of shot put. Alright, now I know it shows the shot put 22 meters, but the reason why he's so underrated is because I don't think a lot of people know, or maybe they do because now it's circulating around, getting the rounds and stuff on Instagram and whatnot, and YouTube, but he is the first spinner ever to throw 22 meters. The first shot putter ever to use the rotational technique and throw 22 meters. And I think that just changed the trajectory of shot put as we know it today. Without him, we wouldn't have people like Ryan Krauser, we wouldn't have Joe Kovacs, we wouldn't have Adam Nelson, Reese Hoffa, Cantwell, we wouldn't have John Godina, we wouldn't have Randy Barnes. You know, we wouldn't have a whole host, Dave Lout. We wouldn't have these guys. And I think it's very important to realize that at this point, like the date shows here, 1976, everyone was using the glide, all right? And I don't think anybody believed that the rotational technique could best the glide. But this right here proved that you can throw far with the spin. All right. So that alone deserves recognition. So even though he was from the Soviet Union, you know, and I'm American, you got to give respect and honor this guy for what he did for the sport. All right. So that's why I think he's underrated. Just because I don't think a lot of people know or care enough to know about who this guy is, but he is so important. All right? He's basically the Perry O'Brien of the rotational shot put. For those of you who don't know who Perry O'Brien is, he's the guy who invented the glide shot put technique. I think. I'm not very much. I forget if he was the Perry O'Brien was the one that invented it or the one that made it popular. I forget. But, yeah, I could make a video on him, too. He's also criminally underrated. I think he's a multiple-time Olympic champion. Or perhaps I'm thinking of Outwater. Oh, whatever. This isn't a video about either of those, too. So, let's just watch this throw. Now, I know it's slow motion. So, it's a little rough around the edges, you know. So, obviously, people threw discus during this time, you know, in the rotational style. But yeah, he was, and I think there were rotational shot putters before him, but this was the first guy to actually get the 22 meter mark. And I know that I forget his name. Someone else threw like 22:04 or something indoors before him. But and it's indoors. Who really cares at the end of the day? Alexander was the first one to throw 22 meters plus outdoors. And yeah, that's really my point. So yeah, so if you want to credit him for throwing it outdoors, then cool. If you really want to get technical, but let's get into this technique. So actually, despite being from 1976, honestly, if I had a thrower that I was coaching that threw like this, I wouldn't even be that mad, to be completely honest. He does a lot of things very well. Now, obviously, there are some things that I don't like. And obviously, I mean, this is very early on in the spin technique, so I mean, like, I don't expect it to be technically perfect or anything, or even stack up to modern day throwers. But just the fact that he threw 22 meters with this technique, which right now would be like comparable to like a pretty good high school thrower. and like, I'm not trying to diss him or anything, but like, we've just moved on. We've come a long way from 1976. Hell, from nowadays we've come a long way since like 2010 in terms of technique. There's been a revolution in technique with Krauser and Kovacs and Tom Walsh in the scene. So yeah, I'm not dissing him or anything. So don't get your panties in a bunch. But let's get into this. So, starts off very hunched over, very typical of rotators at this time. Discus and shot put. They just really like this. A lot of people weren't very upright and stuff like you see nowadays. So here starts pretty even, both legs, with even weight distribution. Nice simple wind. Gets here. And you could tell this is very early on in glide, rotational shot, because he still holds it like a glide. This was before the revolution where people were like, put the shot put behind your ear for a rotational shot, and then under the chin for a glide shot put. I know Ryan Krauser holds the shot like this, but he was also a glider for a lot of his career. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of his career, but, for the beginning of his career, so that's just what he grew up on. But most rotators don't do that, don't hold it this low. Some do, it's not a bad thing, I always say, whatever you throw furthest with and whatever feels comfortable to you, in terms of holding the shot into your neck, and the placement on your neck, do it. At the end of the day, everyone's different. There are right and wrong things to do, but that's something for a totally different video. Alright, so he's here. Actually really like this, almost Gerd Kanter-esque. Now, if I was going to critique something, I would say that maybe start a little wider, because I think he's like 6'6". I'm going to put his height, weight, personal best, and notable accomplishments in the video description. By the way, he is a 2-time Olympic medalist, I think. Yeah. I think he is, yeah. I think he got silver and a bronze. But, that's besides the point. Well, not really. I mean, that's pretty crazy that, 2-time Olympic medalist, and that's something to scoff at. But let's get into this. So he's here, really like this. And what I mean by Gerd Kanter-esque is that he's leading with the knee, and he gives this angle. I know this isn't the best angle. The really famous video is him from the straight back view of this throw. But I just wanted to change things up a little. Be a little different. So he's here. Honestly, kind of looks like Randy Barnes here in terms of the super hunch position. With his upper body, the only difference is that Randy Barnes had a little stiffer of an ankle, and then he was a little more forward here. But honestly, not bad. Really nice. He actually holds the chest pretty well. Nowadays, you're taught to kind of hold the left arm a little bit down this sector. Not straight. I think a lot of people have gone away from holding it straight down. Straight down the middle of the ring. I think a lot of people realize that that's not really that good of a thing to do. Although some people still do that and have success with it. So find what works for you. But a lot of people now are starting to find this position. Honestly, this position kind of looks like Krauser a little. When like Krauser was in like 2017 and stuff, when he had this little hunch over in the shot. The only difference is that his hips, like the left hip would be like here instead of here, but we'll just gloss over that right now. So one of the things that I think we have made big progress in terms of coaching and technique is the sprint. And I feel like I think I just dropped something. Sorry. Sorry about that. And what I mean by that is, you see how like his ankle isn't really stiff, so he's just rotating, and then he kind of pushes. But now we're taught that this push needs to happen before the right leg gets down. So normally you're taught to, one, have a way longer leg. So you see how he's leading with the knee here. Nowadays, we've learned that this isn't very conducive to angular momentum or rotational momentum, I guess is another way to say that. So normally we're taught to lead with the groin, and this leg should be, it should be bent here. But we're taught, go like out and around and not just in. So that's something I think we've made big strides in. So he's here, and he still gets some rotational momentum, but not that much. Not as much as he could. I believe if he was growing up nowadays, oh my god, he could have thrown so. The fact that he threw 22 meters with this technique, which isn't bad, but I mean, like, compared to today's throwers, is not good. Like, the more I think about it, like, this is actually crazy that he threw 22 meters. I'm sure he was actually just drugged out of his freaking mind, because he was in the Soviet Union. Let's not kid ourselves here, They were on drugs. But whatever. I'm not even going to get into that in this video. But, yeah, so we made big strides in the sprint phase. So normally we're taught that when your right foot gets down, and this is for a right-handed thrower, when your right foot gets down the middle, your left foot has to be in line with your right knee, basically, to make it go down really fast. And if it doesn't, this is what happens. So you notice how his right foot just touches down while his left is leaving. His left foot should have left like by here. So I always say sprint when the right foot is on this half of the ring. That's what I usually coach. There are different ways of explaining that, but that's where most people usually have it. So he's here, really nice for this, I guess. So he's here, he actually kind of pre-turns a little, which is actually kind of crazy that he does that in this throw. And this is my first time actually breaking down this throw. I've only just seen it in like slow motion stuff. I've never actually spent too much time. And the more I see, the more I actually really am actually amazed that he's doing like this modern stuff that we still do to this day. It's actually kind of crazy. Like, a pre-turn back then is insane. And I don't know if he's doing that on purpose or he's just doing that because he's just reaching. Because he's not reaching with his right foot. Because he's not getting a good sprint out the back. I mean, either or, but still, it's kind of crazy. So he's here. And this position should have just happened like a couple of frames earlier. But, not bad. And then here, he actually lands, he lands like a glider. Like a wide stance glider. Which, makes sense. Even, it took until, I think, like Randy Barnes to realize that, hey, you don't have to, finish like a glider in the rotational shot. I could be mistaken about that, too. I need to brush up on my history a little bit. I haven't studied it for quite some time. But I think he's the first one. Randy Barnes is the first one that comes to mind when I think of a modern day shot put technique. And even then, we don't do a lot of stuff he did. But yeah, that's something for a completely different video. But yeah, so he's here. This makes perfect sense. Normally, with the sprint, you will be a little further across the ring, not this wide of a stance. But finishes extremely well through it. So this is the other big thing that we've learned is to rotate through the finish. So he's just finishing like a glider. He's just kind of pushing into his block. So you see, well, maybe you can't see because of the quality of this film, but you see how he just kind of just pushes instead of rotating the foot and grinding the ground and staying grounded as long as possible. So he just goes here and just pushes over his left block, which, I mean, like, that's it makes perfect sense why he throws like this. This is very early on and when people started rotating in shot put. Um, so it makes perfect sense, because even though he threw 22 meters, I mean, obviously you had gliders still dominating the scene for a long time. Honestly, I would say gliders dominated until John Godina got on the scene, honestly. Because even when Randy Barnes broke the world record, is still very dominated by gliders for the scene, for the shot put scene. There were a lot more rotational throwers, but there were still gliders dominating medals and stuff. You had Werner Gunther, Alf Timmerman, Alessandro Andre, Udo Bayer, a whole bunch of a plethora of throwers, of gliders. So, yeah, that was just a very long way of just saying that it makes sense why he's finishing like a glider. But I just like to waffle, as the British would say. So he's here. I really like this punch that he gets. I know you can't really see it in all the frames, and he gets a very excellent block. And honestly, I mean, like, the fact that he's getting this open position, like, honestly, this position looks like Joe Kovac's stand throwing. I'm going to be completely honest. Because Joe Kovac doesn't really rotate, and he just kind of hucks it. Okay, I shouldn't say that. He doesn't just huck it. I mean, he doesn't care about fouling out the front is a nicer way of saying that. I don't even know nice. I don't know why I'm saying nicer. I'm not trying to diss Joe Kovacs. It's his second first throw ever. I can't diss that. Plus, I love Joe Kovacs. But yeah, if anybody's seen like his famous video of Joe Kovacs' famous video of him throwing like 19 or 20 meters in the stand throw, I think it was his warm up for Beijing, the Beijing World Champs in 2015. You can kind of see what I'm talking about with this position. How he just kind of here and then just boom, just goes. The only difference is Alexander doesn't, foul at the front. So, but yeah, and the one thing I wanted to point out is that he has an open foot here, which is very common and taught for universally, I think, nowadays. At least a lot of people on the pro circuit nowadays do this. Whereas before, I feel like a lot of people wanted to land with a close foot, and what I mean by close foot is the left foot would be facing this way instead of out towards where we're going to throw. And I think that this right here causes a tremendous stretch in the groin and the hip. And it really gets you turned even more with your right hip and really gets your hip out and around at the finish. Whereas if it just landed closed, it has a tendency to decelerate a little and to have more chance to land off balance, and it leads to a lot less quicker hips and a lot less momentum to help your hips turn. So I think that's why a lot of people have started to get away from that. So you hear like coaches all the time like saying in your stand throws, like don't turn this foot, just keep it open and then only move your right side and stuff. That's why, because they don't want you to get in that habit of landing like that. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I mean, it's crazy that he's actually hitting this position back then. Like, I'm actually, again, this is my first time really breaking down this, so I'm actually quite amazed at the stuff we still use today that he's doing in this throw. Obviously, some stuff is outdated, but yeah, I mean, it's not like people didn't throw shot put, obviously, but I mean, the fact that this went 22 meters, I mean, I've seen people with way better technique than this that do not throw 22 meters. Now, obviously, probably a lot to deal with is that he's 6'6" and was sauced out of his mind, probably, and probably coked up too. But, because, it was the Soviet Union. But still, even, if I saw this dude throw, and I didn't know anything about him. I would honestly think he was like a 55 to 60 foot high school shot putter. Maybe 55. Not quite 60. And I mean, like, that's a pretty good compliment for someone that basically was one of the pioneers in rotational shot put. You know, like, his technique still holds up today. Like, honestly, like, I bet you, like, if he was not sauced up, he could still throw, I don't know, like 18 meters with this technique. Because, like, he does a lot of stuff very good. Some outdated stuff. I wouldn't even call it wrong. Because I've seen people throw. And obviously, I can't say someone who threw 22 meters threw wrong. You know, who am I to say that? Even if you are sauced up. But, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's actually, I'm just amazed, honestly. I should have done this a long time ago. Like, how much modern stuff he does. In terms of modern technique. Like, it's actually kind of crazy. You know. Oh, my God. I wonder if this is what Randy Barnes actually got. I'll have to research that. Because this is what Randy Barnes looked like, basically, like, out of college and, like, early in his rotational career. There's, like, a video on YouTube that shows his progression from high school to the world record. In terms of his technique. And, wow, this is so reminiscent. Like, if I just saw this picture right here, I would think that's Randy Barnes. That looks basically exactly like him out the back. Like, that's actually crazy. Wow. Wow. Well, I can all go this when I'm not on video. But, yeah, overall, I think he's very underrated. I think he deserves the respect that he should have for pioneering this and, well, no, sorry, not pioneering this, but making the spin popular, showing that, you know, the glide isn't the only way to throw 22 meters plus in the shot put. And yeah, just, it's crazy. Like, the person, I don't know if he actually invented the rotational shot, but I know he popularized it. And I know he's the first person to throw over 22, but I mean, whoever, like, actually invented the rotational shot, and I don't know if, I feel like that would be very hard to prove who invented it, you know, but, you know, like, just someone thinking, hey, why don't I throw the shot put like how the discus throwers are doing it, you know, like, that's crazy when you really think about it at that time, you know, like, I can just imagine, like, back in, like, the 20s or something, when, like, they used to, like, throw shot put at, like, off of, like, starting blocks and stuff, or, like, that little ramp from, like, the, like, Berlin Olympics and stuff, and then, like, Perry O'Brien just comes over, he's like, hey, I'm gonna glide, and people are like, wow, you're so weird, what is that? And then he just ends up just winning everything, like, every year. He's basically like the Ryan Krauser of his time, just couldn't beat this dude. Like, man, that's actually crazy. But, yeah, anyway. I'm just talking to myself at this point. But anyway, so I hope you guys like this video. I hope you guys have found a new respect for Aleksandr Baryshnikov. And I'll see you guys in the next one. And, oh yeah, I'll link his personal best, height, weight, and notable accomplishments in the video description. And have a good day. See y'all later.